Video game villains have plenty on their plate already, what with their primary objective being killing you, a video game protagonist who is, by virtue of checkpointing, functionally immortal. And yet some of these big bad bosses take on astounding amounts of extra work in addition to their basic villainy, going the extra mile to overcomplicate their plans, to inconvenience you, or just for the drama. Makes you wonder whether these villains haven't gotten a bit sidetracked from ending the world. Consider these 7 bosses who are working way too hard just to mess with you, and beware spoilers ahead for the following games.
Detective, it begins. You are staring, with stupefied incomprehension, at a mechanism I have calibrated to respond to an extremely precise radar pulse. In a moment, I will give you the decrypted code, Dark Knight. Oh, but first, I think we should run through the ground rules for tonight's festivities. Rule the first. You will address me at all times as Riddler.
No point getting out. Riddler's plan involves the car.
Solve tonight's very first riddle. Well done. Well done.
Edward Nygma, better known as the Riddler, is quite sensitive about being properly recognised for his intellect, and probably about having a name like Edward Nygma. In Batman Arkham Knight, he's determined to prove his IQ is superior to the Batman's, so he uses that big brain of his to devise a brilliant plan: kidnap Catwoman to get the Bat's attention, lock her up with 9 different keys,
collect every key and the kitty goes free.
Good so far. Here comes the test of intellect. Then scatter some of those keys across the city inside multiple different racetracks. Racetracks? You do know Batman has a special car, right? Setting aside the fact that the Riddler is challenging Batman to a battle of brains that you can win by basically driving quite fast, the wildest thing about these elaborate courses is just how much time and resources he must have spent creating them. First, he had to sit down and sketch out each course, where all the gates and jumps were, gauging their difficulty just right so that they were challenging but not impossible. Then there was the job of acquiring large plots of underground real estate, getting planning permission, paying an extensive team of construction workers, all the while cackling to himself about how this was going to show up that arrogant Batman and his deductive reasoning skills. You finally got him stumped this time, haven't you, Riddler?
Congratulations, Detective.
First time. Nice. It was easy because of my special car.
Playing Bioshock is a bit like being at a dinner party with a bunch of much better read guests and hoping they don't notice your glassy stare the next time they mention a controversial 20th century novelist. In it, you're witnessing the aftermath of a society of intelligentsia who gathered from around the world in an underwater city where their galaxy brain thinking could run wild and unconstrained by silly consideration like governments or laws or basic human ethics. Still, one of the game's most well-known characters is proof that they can't all be that smart, given that he's hatched some of the most needlessly laborious schemes since the most recent season of Physical 100. Frank Fontaine is a contraband dealer with a knack for assuming different identities who isn't well liked by Rapture's creator Andrew Ryan, who Fontaine learns is planning on having him killed. Don't worry though, because Frank Fontaine's got a plan. Just hear him out on this. That plan began with modifying the embryo of Ryan's illegitimate son, splicing his genetic code so that he matures much faster than normal, and then conditioning him to respond unquestioningly to certain key phrases. The plan proceeds by then letting that son leave Rapture and live out in the real world. This is definitely a good and efficient plan. The plan continues with Fontaine staging his own death and assuming a new identity with an Irish accent, and then leading a rebellion against Ryan, and then summoning that modified illegitimate son, who is you, the player, back down to Rapture via that surefire mode of precision transport, having a plane crash over the open ocean. Now that Fontaine has you back down among the groaning rivets of what is now a murderer-heavy Rapture, It's a simple matter of using that linguistic programming he instilled in you as an embryo to guide you around for 8 hours of gunfight-filled corridors.
Now, would you kindly find a crowbar or something?
Finally, Fontaine orchestrates a meeting between you and an unguarded, unarmed Andrew Ryan when this incredibly complicated plan turns out to be redundant anyway, because Ryan himself forces you to kill him using the same verbal command because a man chooses and a slave spends the next 17 years trying to make sense of that scene.
Kill!
Just to underline the extraness of his plan A, Fontaine now decides to load himself up with tons of Adam and turn into a jacked superhuman who could surely have murdered Andrew Ryan without the need to raise a genetically modified assassin. Except he did raise a genetically modified assassin, one that's now quite annoyed about being genetically modified and lied to, and kills Fontaine in a humiliatingly easy boss encounter.
I'm gonna bury you!
But no, sure. Good plan, Frank. Did this guy cheat on the Rapture entrance exam?
I certainly hope you know what you're doing.
The events of Half-Life might seem like an accident caused by a research scientist pushing a shopping trolley into a festival lighting rig, but it's actually all the machinations of the G-Man. First spotted on your train ride into the Black Mesa facility and dropping in throughout the game to make mysterious appearances, the G-Man has orchestrated an invasion by a totalitarian alien regime that will eventually enslave all of humanity, and it all begins here with you shoving a sample into a big science thingy he's tampered with. It takes a big picture thinker to bring about a disastrous global event like that, and while we can't knock the G-Man's efficacy, we're forced to call into question the sheer amount of additional unnecessary effort it must have taken to ensure all the enigmatic walk-ons that follow. How is he managing to cross paths with us in Black Mesa this often, when in all my years of trying, I've only seen Bill Nighy out and about in London once? Either the G-Man has planned out Gordon's entire circuitous route through Black Mesa well in advance and funneled him down it by setting up turrets and broken retinal scanners in all the right places, or he cleared his entire schedule that day and tracked down Gordon from afar, then sprinted ahead and casually walked back through the same corridors he'd just run down, all to appear mysterious and untouchable to one specific goateed research scientist. A research scientist who, let's not forget, is mute anyway and completely incapable of expressing his disbelief at how you got here in his proximity. Unlike Bill Nighy. Sorry, Bill Nighy.
Bowser's been inconveniencing Mario in perplexing ways for so many decades now that we don't even question it. He's like part of the furniture these days, albeit an extremely spiky and uncomfortable piece of furniture that hates you. Note to self, it's time for a new mattress. A big part of why Bowser's never succeeded in whatever it is that he wants to do is that he can never seem to decide exactly what that is. Sometimes he wants to rule the Mushroom Kingdom, sometimes he wants to marry Princess Peach, other times he just acts like he wants to marry her as a ruse to kidnap her and lure Mario into one of the many elaborate trap and obstacle-filled castles he's built. Constructed with careful consideration for Mario's max speed and jump distance, obviously. He's a Koopa, not a monster. Then there's the evil for the sake of it category of Bowser's villainy, including stealing the Star Rod in Paper Mario so that nobody in the Mushroom Kingdom's wishes can come true, trying to build his own galaxy in Super Mario Galaxy and accidentally destroying the universe in the process, and lying to his own son that Princess Peach is his mum in Super Mario Sunshine.
I'm your mama? Yeah, Papa told me all about it.
Unless he's built a machine for taking over the Mushroom Kingdom that runs entirely on Bowser Jr.'s tears, that is a strikingly pointless bit of evil-doing. The most baffling thing about all this is that while Bowser is extremely committed to his elaborate, unnecessarily complicated schemes, which suggests the end goal of messing with Mario, the denizens of the Mushroom Kingdom, and his own son is very important to him, we can't help but ask, is his heart really in it? After all, he's prepared to immediately cease hostilities for a friendly game of tennis, a full 18 holes of golf,
Nice birdie!
and a substantial number of go-kart races. Who hurt you, Bowser? You can tell us. Mario Raceway is a safe space.
How'd the playtests go?
Incredible. We were able to keep a constant stream of 5 gigs a second.
Of genetic memory data? That's amazing.
And this is through existing broadband networks, straight into people's homes.
Wow, this is going to change everything.
The big bad in the Assassin's Creed series isn't one particular villain, but a whole consortium of them hiding behind a faceless corporation. And I hate those, which is why I only buy my food at Whole Foods. Oh, what? Owned by Amazon? Not even the price of supermarket olive oil in 2024 can compare to the unspeakably evil deeds of Abstergo Industries, though. This is a multinational corporate conglomerate created as a front for Templars to accumulate wealth that they can then use to take complete control over humanity.
Created by Abstergo's incredible research into genetic memory, Animus gives you the chance to game within the past.
In pursuit of that wealth, around the time that Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is set, they were running a huge video game development studio. After swashbuckling around the Caribbean in the opening hours, in what we refer to as the fun bit of the game, you're brought back out of Kenway's memories and realise that the whole thing's been a fancy interactive video game experience that you've been playing at a studio called Abstergo Entertainment. The grand plan here is to repackage and sell historic genetic memories as AAA video games, in itself a presumably lucrative business, but also ultimately serving as Templar propaganda. Just like that time I played Tetris and immediately became a communist. But considering this shadowy cabal already controls the US government, brought about World War II, had Hitler and Stalin as puppet agents, and sent the first humans to the moon just to bring back a piece of Eden, I can't help but wonder if Abstergo really needs to be messing with us all via video games at this point.
Wesker.
So you've come. Chris, you make me proud. But of course you are one of my men.
Thanks. Since when, Wesker?
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
At this point, we're 16 major entries into the Resident Evil series, and to look upon the entire overarching plot is to go mad. One of the few constants throughout the punishingly convoluted sequence of events, though, is Albert Wesker.
Wesker?
Chris, you're alive.
My words exactly.
Wesker's a man of consistency, a talented virologist who's somehow able to perform his job looking into microscopes all day without having once taken his sunglasses off since 1978. He's less talented, however, at getting shit done. His entire existence is one of very nearly seeing his grand plan succeed, then getting embroiled in conversations with various STARS operatives and becoming completely sidetracked. Here he is in the Resident Evil 1 remake, not shooting Jill Valentine, and instead getting shot by Barry because he wanted to spend 10 minutes of cutscene explaining how clever he is.
You know, I hate goodbyes.
And here he is at the end of Resident Evil 5, not getting in the plane, and instead dilly-dallying to give Chris and Sheva one of the most deliciously ironic lines ever snarled.
Do you actually think you can defeat me? Either way, I'm not gonna stop until I'm dead. Well then, I'll just have to kill you quickly.
It's like he doesn't even know he's currently in a video about ineffective bosses. If he didn't have an irresistible urge to stalk various Redfields around and pop up to tell them how clever he'd been in ways they hadn't realised, Wesker would definitely have wiped out humanity by now, but...
Well, isn't this one big family reunion?
He does, so us 7.999 billion non-Redfields are pretty safe.
全世界の人類に告げる。貴様ら人類は武器や兵器に頼りすぎ軟弱な生物と化した。この世界を牛耳っているのは自ら戦うことを忘れた弱者どもだ。
Considering the amount of emotional baggage Tekken's Kazuya Mishima is dealing with, you can understand the odd act of violence. certainly more than his hair or eyebrow styling decisions. In a bit of parenting seldom recommended by child psychologists, his dad Heihachi threw him off a cliff when he was a kid to toughen him up, so he spent all of the original Tekken fighting his way through the Iron Fist tournament to earn a shot at facing Heihachi and exacting his revenge. Kazuya earns that shot and uses it to throw his dad off a cliff, murdering him as far as he knows, and subsequently wrestling for control over a big purple devil that lives inside him in one of the least subtle metaphors of all time. Although, to be honest, if the only way you're going to learn that chucking your children off cliffs is bad is by being chucked off a cliff by one of your children, you do probably need your metaphors to be quite basic. Anyway, so far so relatable, but what we can't wrap our heads around is how and why Kazuya, who is effectively a demigod at this point, channels all that trauma, rage and unfathomable supernatural power into running a high-profile, slickly packaged televised martial arts tournament.
The King of Iron Fist Tournament の開催を宣言する。強き者はトーナメントに集え。
When you stop to think about the paperwork involved in getting a human to fight a bear inside a World Heritage Site, you get a sense of the scale of what Kazuya's taken on here. The insurance policies, legal paperwork with the sanctioning bodies, then there's processing the gate receipts, running the social media accounts and approving fighters' applications. Either Kazuya's a deeply unhappy man who buries himself in his work to avoid dealing with his feelings, or he's run out of things to chuck off a cliff.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video about bosses who worked way too hard to mess with just you. You on your own, why have they done that? I don't know, strange of them. We've got more videos for you to watch. Up here is another one from us here at Outside Xtra. Down here is one from the sister channel Outside Xbox. You can catch more of me over there. But don't just click on them. What I need you to do is go outside your house, get in your car, drive down the road, get 2 pints of milk, bring them back to your house, pour them all over the floor, jump up and down in them, go back into your house, and then click one of these 2 videos, and then go back down and do something about that milk. Why is that there? What do you do that for? Weird.